Hearing with us, ABC's Brittany Shepard, congressional reporter Trish Turner, senior investigative reporter Aaron Katursky, and retired NYPD chief of detectives Robert Boyce. Brittany, let's start with you. Committee members there going pretty hard on profits versus the people, using PowerPoint presentations. Gun manufacturer is not answering specific questions, though, on the money that they do make off these weapons. Record profits, including marketing these weapons using creative buzzwords to help bring in those sales.
Exactly, Kira. What we're hearing from these gun manufacturers is an attempt to humanize both themselves and their product. No surprise here, as they rake in tons of money, and there are Republicans on the committee and, of course, in the chamber who believe that it is going to be a high market 2A issue. When you're hearing this testimony, and of course that really gut-wrenching video that we saw at the top of families and survivors of those killed in Uvalde, in Sandy Hook, you have to wonder who the dual audiences of this kind of committee is. Of course, it's the folks in the chamber, and the American people, who I think it's about a majority, 52% support some kind of assault weapons ban or any kind of advanced edit to the gun legislation, but it's also to the larger chamber right now, where we're seeing the House really difficultly attempt to get an assault weapons ban reinvigorated after 30 years after 1994 on the Hill. Carolyn Maloney even told us, ABC, that she thinks that they might have the votes, but Democrats really need they could only, lose 4 Democrats here. And I think about some of this committee hearing is to convince those Democrats to fall in party line and push this kind of legislation into the Senate, where it's sure to fail, but at least prove to the American people before they go on recess just next week that they're trying their hardest. So that's why they're going so hard on these manufacturers, not just to their colleagues, but to bring that home into their constituencies.
Yeah, but the question is, will that work? You know, Aaron, we were listening to the manufacturers like Marty Daniel, CEO of Daniel Defense. He was getting grilled on his gun, the same model used by the Uvalde gunman, to which he went to a stat saying the weapon, like the one used in Uvalde, it's been used fewer than 4%. It's been used in fewer than 4% of homicides in 2019. I mean, just the fact that he would just lay that out as in if any homicide is okay using that weapon. But what did you make of him putting that stat out there? It's really the first number that we've heard, some sort of statistic by one of these gun manufacturers so far.
Of course, he's right. Most of the gun violence involves a handgun in this country, and this is a committee hearing that's focused on a semi-automatic assault-style rifle that the committee has rightly said is the weapon of choice for most of the mass shootings, the high-profile ones that get everyone talking about. So I think that he's entirely right, and his testimony reminded me of that, actually, of Purdue Pharma or the Sacklers, in saying that just like drug makers make a legal product that is, brought to market in ways that are often beyond the manufacturer's control, gun makers here are saying the same thing, that they make a product that is legal, and once it leaves their shop, they don't control who pulls the trigger or even necessarily who gets it. So the committee, I think, wants an apology for something that the gun makers are unwilling to give. And ultimately, the committee may try to use techniques that were successful in dealing with the opioids epidemic, to hold drug makers accountable in some ways for that. And we're seeing just yesterday a $4 billion settlement by Teva Pharmaceuticals. Here, the committee, or at least the Democrats on the committee, would like gun makers to be held responsible for the gun violence epidemic in the country. But the same mechanisms that exist to track how drugs permeate our society, they don't exist for tracing the way guns permeate our society.
I don't think we're going to be seeing any apologies on behalf of the gun manufacturers. Bob, as this committee tries to prove that these gun manufacturers are responsible for the gun violence epidemic, is that even a fair argument to make here as you've been listening to them defend themselves? And can this committee even prove that because of their marketing, or because they say they're putting profits over people, that truly is causing these mass shootings and the high rise in crime and deaths across our country?
Kira, I think there's so many policy failures that we all go around right through the system. Clearly, they're a player in this, the manufacturers. But then the manufacturers is the one lady said goes to dealers, goes to distributors, and then dealers. So our present system now of determining who can get these guns, who's going to be a receiver of these, the purchaser, get these guns, is failing. And that's what we should be going after right now. They should be playing a role in it, of course. But condemning them alone is not the answer here, and that's the problem. And they have a leg to stand on here. They're going to fight here. But the fact of the matter is, our entire system of getting these guns into people, especially young men and teens who are undiagnosed mental illness, that's the issue in this. We need to be talking about, as well as the gun owners and how much they're making. But the marketing here, is that the problem? And I saw Mr. Busey speak about targeting domestic terrorist organizations. I didn't see that from what I've done so far. So there's a lot more to be talked about here.
Is that fair, though, Bob? Do these gunmen buy these weapons because of the so-called gun grabs that we just heard them referred to them to, these creative marketing strategies?
You see the marketing strategies, and he was 100% right. It's patriotism, and militarism when they push these things out. And it is a weapon of war. There's no doubt about it. Civilianized, which means it's not capable of fully auto. That's the only difference between these guns here. So it's appealing to someone who wants to gain power, who wants to have this rooting in mental illness. So that's the appeal right there. Are they targeting these people? I don't think so, but let's go on with the meeting and find out specifics on that marketing campaign.
So, Trish, Marty McDaniel, again, defending his position, saying that these mass shootings were unheard of decades ago, that guns haven't changed, it's the people. And he says where this focus should be in order to reduce the threats is the focus should be within community systems. Bob touched on that, dealing with mental health. So when we talk about Congress holding these companies accountable, is that going to be, because you've pointed out, I mean, getting gun legislation passed is truly a difficult thing, and holding these companies accountable is truly difficult. So is that the route Congress goes, focusing more on the community systems versus the gun companies and how they market their weapons?
Well, Kira, what we're seeing is Democrats really trying every avenue they can to try to encapsulate, and move on this momentum that is out there in the country. There is high support for expanding background checks, holding these manufacturers accountable, but it is just like a wide net that they're casting to see if anything else can get through. But to the point of mental health, so the legislation that passed just in June really does attempt to incentivize communities to pass these so-called red flag laws. Now, there's lots of controversy about these. Do they work? Who is responsible? How do you, get the, how do you take the guns? And, but this is really about, family members teaching the community around these vulnerable, oftentimes young men who might commit these crimes, trying to train people to, it's okay to report that loved one to the court system, to the police, have those weapons temporarily seized to try to get at this problem. Of course, these red flag laws are in something like 19 states. There's federal money out there now to try to get more people on board, to try to get the states who actually have red flag laws to use them. So a lot of times citizens don't even know about them. So there is a movement there, but like you said, there really isn't a wider movement here or support here for, tearing down that legal immunity, that legal shield that exists in a 2005 law for these gun manufacturers. That's just not going to happen. And you heard it. The Republicans, on that committee are attacking the Democrats, saying, you're just soft on crime. You just want to defund the police. Of course, that's not true for all Democrats. They're painting with a broad brush, but that is an attack line that is really fertile this midterm campaign season. So you're not going to see leadership of either chamber, I would guess, go after any type of legislation like this. You might see that assault weapons ban come across the finish line in the House on Friday. You know, the House Democratic leadership is, you know, this is a Herculean effort to get enough Democrats on board because of so many fissures in the Democratic Party right now, in the Democratic caucus in the House alone. So this is even proving difficult to get an assault weapons ban through the House. It's dead on arrival in the Senate.
All right, we'll continue to carry on with this conversation. Brittany Shepard, Trish Turner, Eric Kandersky, Robert Boyce, thank you so much. That hearing will be back after a quick break, and so will we. So glad you're streaming with us today. You know, WNBA star Brittany Griner has finished testifying now in her own defense in that Russian courtroom at her trial for drug charges. She told the judge that she was recovering from COVID and under stress when she traveled to Moscow for basketball playoffs and unintentionally brought that cannabis oil into Moscow's airport. Maggie Rulli has been tracking all the latest for us out of London.
After 5 months detained in Russia, we're hearing from Brittany Griner for the first time, testifying that she did not intend to break the law, clarifying that she bought the cannabis legally, and explaining she travels a lot and every country has different rules, saying she had just recovered from COVID. It had been a long flight and she was stressed, but also acknowledging that she was aware the U.S. government had warned people not to go to Russia. Griner, a two-time Olympic gold medalist, was visiting Russia to play basketball in the off-season when she was arrested in mid-February at a Moscow airport after vape canisters containing cannabis oil were found in her luggage. Griner has pled guilty, but insists it was a mistake, saying she accidentally packed it when traveling.
If I had to speculate, or if I had to guess on how they ended up in my bags, I was in a rush packing. Like I said, I was recovering from COVID.
On Tuesday, her defense calling a doctor who specializes in drug and alcohol abuse treatment to the stand, who confirmed Griner had a legal U.S.-issued medical prescription for the cannabis and used it to treat pain and injuries. The medical testimony and Griner's admission aimed at getting her a more lenient sentence.
It can't hurt for her to testify in court. Anything that she and others can do to try to alleviate the sentence is all something that she and her team are going to be looking to do.
The WNBA star seen in court earlier this week, locked in a steel cage, holding up 2 photos of her wife, Sherelle, giving this message to our ABC News producer inside the courtroom.
How do you feel? Do you have any complaints?
No complaints. Waiting patiently.
The U.S. government under pressure to bring her home.
And Kara, we have been waiting to hear from Brittany herself. This was really her chance to tell her side of the story. And again, she reiterated that she never intended to break the law. But Kara, many legal experts are calling this testimony a last-ditch effort because the vast majority of people who are arrested on drug charges in Russia get the maximum sentence of 10 years in prison. Kara?
Thank you. All right, Maggie Rulli, thank you so much. And we will be right back. More news ahead. And thanks for streaming us here on ABC News Live. The families of 2 young girls have filed lawsuits against Instagram's parent company Meta, claiming that the platform fueled eating disorders. They say they want the social media platform to take responsibility for Instagram's impact on the mental health of their children and teens. ABC's Ariel Reshef has the latest for us.
The families of 2 teens filing new lawsuits against Meta, the parent company of Instagram, claiming the platform causes eating disorders and is spurring a mental health crisis among young people.
As a parent, you feel hopeless. You try to support them and you do what you can for them, but it's hard to understand.
Jennifer and Benjamin Martin allege Instagram created the perfect storm of addiction, social comparison, and exposure to incredibly harmful content for their daughter, saying algorithms targeted the 12-year-old's feed with content that ultimately led to mental health issues, an eating disorder, and even attempted suicide.
Around 2016, that we noticed some extreme weight loss in her, and then put the puzzle pieces together that it was a direct correlation to social media, more specifically Instagram.
The second suit, filed by the Kentucky parents of a girl identified only by the letters CN, who say she too was just 12 when she started using Instagram originally to look up recipes to cook with her mother. Lawyers claiming the girl was quickly targeted by Instagram algorithms showing recipes designed to achieve negative caloric intake, and pushing the young girl down a dangerous rabbit hole, even connecting her to other users with tips about how to hide the fact that she wasn't eating. These photos attached to the lawsuit purporting to show CN before using Instagram and after. Both lawsuits accusing Meta of prioritizing growth and competition concerns and engagement over user safety.
There could be billions of dollars in damages. They could have to have outside people overseeing what they were doing to ensure that their algorithm techniques weren't targeting minors. If these plaintiffs are successful, there are going to be hundreds, potentially thousands of more plaintiffs.
The social media giant already under the microscope after former Facebook data scientist Frances Haugen blew the whistle, testifying before Congress last October.
I believe Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy.
Haugen publishing internal documents, including research finding Instagram had made body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teens, but took no action to stop it. Meta is not commenting on the 2 new lawsuits, but say they're committed to raising the standard for protecting teens and supporting families online.
And our thanks to Ariel Reshiff for that. I'm Kira Phillips. We'll be right back with more news.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.